Hello, welcome, bienvenidos to our talk today on fundraising and donor cultivation. I'm Rick Juliuson. I've just completed 3 years as the co-director of the Monteverde Friends School in Costa Rica, and we've implemented this model with great success. And it's a model that I've been working with for about 15 years now with organizations throughout North America and even Sri Lanka. So it really does work. A few suggestions as we go through this. One is that you figure out how to pause, because number two, I'm hoping that you will take notes as you're going along. Not notes so much about what I'm saying as you should be having great insights about what you're doing well in your organization or ideas you have to make it better. So jot those down as we're going through, and then later go over this with your team, because successful implementation requires full buy-in from your team. And then once you're done with all that, please do email me. My email address is in front of you, and I'll bring it back at the end. I want you to succeed at this, and I want to support you in this. I'm going to turn the video off so you can focus on the graphics, and let's get started. So first, just to convince you this is worth doing, here are the results we had at the Monteverde Friends School in Costa Rica. In the last 3 years, we have doubled our donations from $46,000 to over $94,000 this year. We still have a month to go in this year. Related to that, our number of donors has gone up 141%, from 159 to 384. And we'll talk about this later, but we have 48 donors now who have made 5-year pledges. So over the 5 years, that will bring in $153,000. So this has worked very well, and it can work in your organization too. I would suggest that you gather, if you're going to be working on this, you gather some of the baseline data like I just laid out, and I'll bring that back again at the end. Just to be clear, we started with a great advantage. We had an organization with 64 years of success, supporters who have been with us even all 64 of those years or for many years. We have a very strong school. We had an existing database that had been well maintained. We had a fundraising program that was already following a lot of these principles. And the school made a strategic decision to invest in resources, including dedicating a large amount of my time towards this. So we started from a very strong place. This is the model that I'm going to be sharing with you. And so it's circular, it's meant to be sustainable, and I'm using farm analogies because I was a farmer on Vancouver Island before coming to Monteverde. So when you start in your garden, you're going to gather your seeds, and then you're going to plant them in the ground, and then you're going to nurture them for a while and cultivate them. And then finally, you'll get your first harvest. So this is where you would actually ask for money. And then you would continue to care for those plants so you can get later harvests. And from those plants, you'd also be gathering more seeds to start the cycle again. In this case, it's referrals. And from those same plants, you'd be getting further harvests and hopefully greater harvests. So that's a very quick overview. But before we go into each step, I would like to share some of the basic principles because these are very important. This is not a model you should undertake unless you agree with these principles. The first is this is relationship-based fundraising. The key, absolute key to this working is that you want to be in relationship with your donors. And a good relationship with donors, just like a good marriage, is based on honesty. It's based on reciprocity. Each of you giving something to each other that you need and want. You want to have a shared vision. You need to have passion. A good marriage needs passion, and a good fundraiser and a good donor need passion for your cause. Hopefully you want this to be long-term. My wife's listening, she agrees. It should be fun. It should feel good, this relationship and the transactions. A good relationship, usually you have shared social circles, and many of our donors want that from us. They want inclusion. And It gives you a feeling of increased integrity, like you're doing something good here, you and the donor both. This is a standard in fundraising. Retention is easier than recruitment. It takes a lot of work to find a new donor and convince them to give. Once you have someone giving, retaining them is still work, and very important work, but not as difficult. Part of our success at the Monteverde Friends School is we now have 165 repeat donors, people who gave last year and gave again this year. And that was $58,000, almost 2/3 of our total this year. The average organization in the United States has 45% donor retention rate. So there's a marker to measure your own work against. Related to that, referrals are easier than cold calling. If you stand on the street corner or just send out blanket emails to a list that you purchase, you're not going to get very much return from that. If you have a current donor or staff member or client who tell their mother or their friend, hey, you should look at this school or this organization, that's going to be much easier to have that door opened for you. So in this model, we're trying to encourage referrals. That was part of the seed saving that you'll see later. Donors increasingly these days are seeing what they're doing as an investment, and they want to see that their investment has returns, that it's doing something real that matters to the donor. So you have to share that with them. You have to make sure it's true, and you have to share it. These next two are my favorite. Giving should be joyful. Your donors should feel good as they give, and you should be making them feel good after they give as well. In this model and in this relationship, we never talk about squeezing donors or pressuring them or hitting on donors. We talk about giving opportunities to support. You want this to feel good for them. And related to that, your job, asking, should be joyful. My success as a fundraiser has been because I believe in the organization I'm working for. With this school, I believe in what we're doing for our students and what they're going to do for our society. And so offering people the chance to support that is a joy for me. I'm letting them be part of the magic that is our school. So find a way to make it good for you. And everyone is a potential donor. I'll get into this in just a second, but you never know who has something to give or what they have to give. And finally, I don't believe in scarcity. We've been through economic repressions. We've been through a lot of difficulties. A lot of times that we hear that donors aren't going to give as much anymore. There's tax reform laws in the United States right now that people are saying are going to result in people giving less because they can't get the tax write-off they used to. I believe that there are always people out there with resources who want to use those resources in a good way, and your organization offers a good way. So back to our model, we'll start at number 1, gathering seeds. So this is where we're trying to figure out who could be potential donors for our organization. So when we're thinking about who we want to work with, we're looking for people who are connected to our mission, people who would care about what it is that we do. My organization that I first did this model with supported schools in Africa and AIDS work and small business development in Kenya. So I was looking for former educators or current. I was looking for people who have lived in East Africa. I was looking for people concerned with health issues and AIDS. If I had set up a booth outside my children's baseball tournament, I wouldn't have necessarily hit a lot of that market. Sure, a few people, yes. But if I had gone to a gathering of former educators in East Africa, and there are organizations like that, that's where my target market is. That's where I'm most likely to find people who are going to care about what it is that I do. We're not, at this point, looking just for rich people, and you will hear people saying that's what we should do. We're looking for people who care about what we do. And when we find them, they will contribute. Where can we look for these people? Number one is in our database. Hopefully you have one. If not, you have some kind of records or institutional memory about who are currently giving and who have given in the past. Your number one rate of success is going to be continuing to work with people already in your system. And then we're going to look for referrals. As I said, that's easier than cold calling. So when you go to your board, look at your volunteers, your staff, and your donors. Ask them for referrals. Find out who they know who would also care about the organization as much as you do, as much as they do. And of course, these people also could be donors themselves. So hopefully you have 100% of your board who are donors. Also, look at your clients. Look at your students and their parents. Look at your alumni, people who have come through your program and now are out there in the world doing something good with it. These people, don't assume that just because they have been in your program that they are not capable of giving. Many of them will be grateful for the opportunity to be able to give back to an organization that they believe gave them so much, and also their family. If their daughter came through your drug rehab program and now is doing well, they are going to be grateful, and they're going to want other people's daughters to be able to do that. My organization in Africa, our alumni got together and formed their own nonprofit organization to raise money, and they now sponsor 7 African students a year through our organization. And they are so proud of doing that. And when you have events, are you gathering their information and trying to bring them in? Other people's events in public. Maybe you're going to set up a booth at the county fair or a nonprofit fair, or maybe you're just attending and meeting people. I don't know why this is at the bottom of the list because it should be near the top. Social media is a huge platform these days. With the Monteverde Friends School, in these 3 years, we've gone from 800 Facebook friends to 1,862. This is a constant source of new people for us and cultivating the ones that we have. Your website, is this a tool that is attracting people? Have you invested in SEO, search engine optimization, so that when people type in something about what you do, are you the site that Google is finding? When people type in education in Costa Rica, Monteverde Friends School usually comes up number 1, or study abroad in Monteverde, or a number of different ways that we've attracted people to our school through search engine optimization, and then designing our website to function in a way that captures their information, gets them to sign up, gets them to engage with us. And advertising. It's not always the best way because it wants to be very targeted. But one example is going back to social media, doing boosts of your best Facebook posts. At the school, we did one in December for our annual appeal letter. It cost us $40, and our reach was 10,142 people who saw that who wouldn't have otherwise. And more important, 223 of those people clicked on the link. They took action on this, and 5 of them shared it. I do not have data on how many actually gave, but 223 people came into my website, read our story, and considered us for a $40 investment. I think that's a good use of money. So once we've figured out who we want to approach, our next step, once we have those seeds, is to put them in the ground, to start working with these people. And this is specifically referring to our first major interaction with them. Our goal is to, here we go. Sorry. Our goal is to get permission from them to build a relationship. I really believe in permission-based marketing. It's a term that was started by someone from Google, actually. So at the end of this time with them, I will say, would you like to sign up for our newsletter list and give me your phone number so I can call you and start telling you more about the organization. I'm not asking for money at this point. I think it's too early. They just started the relationship. We're going to be old-fashioned. We're not going to ask for a kiss on the first date. The message you want to give them at this point has two parts. Number one is emotion. You want them to feel moved. Ideally, you want them to cry. You want them to feel so powerful about what you've shared that it shakes them to the core. You can do this with a tour of your facility where they meet your clients. You can do it with a video, a story. Stories are very powerful, but you want to shake them. And then you want to give them some information, some cognitive input. Tell them your mission, give them a sample of your programs, a bit about what you do, and make sure they understand the need. But remember, this is the very beginning of a relationship. You don't have to tell them everything. Don't tell them all 14 programs you do. Tell them a little bit, enough that they will go home to their spouse and say, honey, you won't believe this organization I found out about today. I'm so excited. I want to learn more. Now you can build that emotion. Technically, it doesn't have to be any particular kind of emotion, just that they are moved. You can bring them to tears. We made a lot of people interested in caring about us, or people who already did, to respond more after Tropical Storm Nate wiped out this bridge and brought a lot of difficulty to our community. We also do a lot of just sharing the beauty of our students and the hope and what they do in the future after they leave our school. Personally, I like to focus on the good. In reality, starting with some bad and then going to the good works very well. The story about, I'm going to make up a name, Joe, who used to be at home and was beaten by his drunk uncle and wasn't able to go to school. And then now, because of our organization, he's getting an education and he's become a student leader and he just graduated in the top 100 of this country. That is an inspirational story that took them from despair to hope. And I really did just make up that story. That was not based on anybody. How do we do this? How do we have this first meaningful interaction with our prospects? Ideally, it happens in person. At our school, our best work was when people came to visit us and we took them on a tour. And we shared this information with them and we let them look into classrooms. Sometimes we would let their children sit in on a class so they got that experience and came out, Mom, you should see what they did in that class and the new friend I have. You can also do it by showing a video. You can do it by a phone call. If you can do it in person, that's the best. It's also really good if you can do it in a group because it builds energy. People look at each other and see other people getting excited and they think, wow, I should be excited too. But of course, that's not always possible and you can have really good one-on-one things. And ideally, it's an event that you design specifically. The tours that we gave at the school were specifically designed to bring people into our organization and launch this relationship. You might be able to give a tour of your facility or your programs. Or it can be part of another event that's happening. Big Brothers Big Sisters have their bowl-a-thon, which is a fundraiser that people mostly go to for a fun night of bowling and to give a bit of money. But if after the 6th frame, they give a 10-minute presentation about what Big Brothers really does and lets a big brother and little brother talk about it themselves and give a testimonial, and then they go back to bowling, boom, you've just had a good fundraising event, people are having a great time, and they've had their 10 minutes of emotion and information that hopefully will turn them into long-term donors. Once you've had that first meeting with them and you got their permission to continue building a relationship, now the seed's in the ground and now you need to take care of it. On a farm, you're out there regularly, making sure they've got enough water, pulling away weeds, adding ground cover. You're not harvesting yet, you're still just taking care of it. In the fundraising world, we're going to have to do this a lot of work before we can ask them for money. The first step is call them and say thank you. If you got their phone number, if you didn't, do it by email, but ideally you got their phone number, call them up a few days later. And when you call, try to do a lot of listening and take notes because you're starting a relationship and you want to know what it was about this, about you, that kept them interested because later that's what you're going to build upon. There's 4 questions that you can ask in this call or things that you can say. Number 1, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for caring. Number 2, what did you think? What did you think about the event? And what did you think about the organization? People love to give advice. Let them give you advice. Most of them will tell you the same thing about what you could have done better. That's great. Thank you. We've learned from that. And how'd you like our organization? And here, listen, if you've got 8 programs, maybe it was the AIDS thing that they was really interested in, or maybe it was childhood education, or maybe teacher training. Find out what part of it they were interested in and make a note of that in a place that you and other people in your organization will know how to focus your future communications with them. Question number 3, how could you see yourself getting involved? I'm not asking for money at this point, but maybe they're excited and say, you know, I'd like to start teaching ESL to one of your students after school, or maybe I could help with your annual fundraising event. And number 4, it's not too early to ask for referrals. Is there anyone else who might be interested? We're going to be giving another tour next week. Is there anyone you think might be interested in that? Sometimes you might get someone who tell you number 1, 2, and especially number 3, you know, this really isn't my cup of tea. I'm more interested in local organizations than overseas. Great, you know anyone else? Well, yeah, my brother, he's all over that Latin American stuff. I think he would love it. Now, the next principle, and I've heard this mostly through the for-profit world, it takes 7 touches, 7 interactions with you before someone will buy your product or make a donation. So that thank you call is one of them. Boom, you've got number 1 done, and it was a good one. But you've got to come up with more ways to continue engaging this person in a way that is interesting to them, in a way that they want to be engaged. The best way is continuing with this more personal approach where you're calling them, not too much, of course, then they'll get annoyed by you, or emailing them, or being with them in ways that interest them. You're inviting them to volunteer. You're inviting them to events that they might be interested in. Hey, we're having our annual sports day next week. Do you want to come out and watch the kids having fun? Do you want to come out and do a free Zumba class? Do you want to volunteer? You can scoop ice cream for the kids. It's really fun and the kids will love you. And if they mention anything specifically in that phone call, here's your chance to follow up. I remember you saying you were interested in volunteering. Here's an opportunity. I remember you saying you were especially interested in our AIDS program. I just thought you'd like to know we just got a new grant to improve our program, and I just thought you'd like to know that. I did that one time to a donor. She was so impressed. She ended up being on our board of directors. And of course, you're probably not going to be able to do that 7 times. So the second tier is the mass communications. This is your newsletter that they signed up for, your blog, your Facebook posts, your events. You're getting covered in the media. If they came to your event and they liked it, and then a week later they see you in the newspaper, then that person's saying, hey, honey, remember that organization I told you about? Look at this. They just won an award. They're in the newspaper. And going on with our farming metaphor, weed people. Not everyone who came to that event are going to be really interested. People who didn't express interest, or people who've been in your database for a long time and never responded to anything, let them go. You know, your organization is great, but not everyone is going to get hooked by it, and that's okay. So after we've touched them 7 times and over this period of 2 months or 6 months or a year, these people have been learning more about us. They've been getting more interested, getting more passionate. Maybe they came and volunteered. Maybe they referred someone else to one of your events. Now it's time to actually ask them for money. And we're calling this the first harvest because we're going to ask them in a way that hopefully they'll continue to give. When do we do this? After the 7 touches, when they're ripe. You don't pick a fruit too early, it's too hard, it doesn't taste good. And you don't pick it too late or it's already mushy and it's gone bad. But when the fruit is just ripe, it's really easy to pull off a tree. I think that's where the expression, the low-hanging fruit, comes from. What are you asking for? Okay, when you ask, are you just going to ask for $10 from everybody? If you know a lot about this donor, you can be more specific. If you know that they tend to give in the $1,000 range, then by all means, go ahead and ask them for $1,000. In general, you can offer them different tiers. You can say, we've got our $10 giving level, our $50, our $100 level. Maybe you're going to put names on those levels. That's up to you. And as you get to know your donors, you can segment your donor database. You can send different messages to the people that you think are going to respond to an appeal for more money, and a different version to people who might give less. You're also, I believe, as much as possible, you should be trying to get unrestricted funds. Everybody loves to donate money for the new library. Not many people like to donate money for the janitor who cleans it or the electricity it takes to run the lights in it. Unrestricted funds give you the freedom to run your organization the way you need it run. So as much as possible, try not to have donations tied to anything. And as I already mentioned, we'll be asking for multi-year pledges. If you can get $50 from someone, that's great. You can use that $50. If you can get that person to pledge $50 a year for the next 5 years, you've just brought in $300 that you can feel pretty sure you're going to get if you continue to nurture this donor well, and that you can build on. If they give $50 and you can say, hey, how about we make that $10 a month? Now you just turn $50 into $120 a year, or $600 for 5 years. And this will be the key to your sustainability. Where do you do it? Again, asking for money in person is more effective than by letter and much more effective than by email. If you can do a group ask, you can ask a number of people at the same time, it works really well because people see other people donating and it builds up this excitement and this feeling of, wow, if everyone else is donating, this must be a good thing. I should donate as well. And it's a bit safer as long as you're doing it anonymously. When you go for a one-on-one coffee with someone and say, will you donate $1,000? That's high pressure. It's a difficult thing for someone to say no with, and they might feel pressured into giving, which goes against our principle that should be joyful. It makes you feel nervous, or it makes it difficult for them to say no. However, if you can ask for a large amount, if you're going to a major donor and saying, Jill, I need $50,000 to launch this new capital campaign, that should be one-on-one. And that should be someone who's been in your organization for a while, and they should know it's coming. You should say, Jill, I would like to take you out for coffee and discuss how you can be a foundation donor for this new campaign we're having. If none of those are possible, direct mail by the postal system is much more effective than by email. In fact, I did an analysis for this year, and I mailed everybody I could, and then I emailed people for whom I had no addresses. 100% of the donations came from the people who got it by mail. 100%. I was very surprised by that. I do want to analyze that again to make sure it's true. When you do your direct mail, there's a lot of resources about how to create good direct mail. I'm not going to give you all the hints. But I would suggest segmenting, as I already said. Send out targeted messages to different groups as makes sense. Use their name. If you have a database that lets you put dear and then insert first name here, people like to see their name. Make a very clear ask. Get emotion in there. Remember, emotion plus information. There are certain fonts that work better. Just Google that. What font should I use for a fundraising letter? You want to use like a Courier script or a sans serif. It really does work better. And use a PS. People read PSs. Put in another ask there. PS. Do you know that you can multiply your gift by sending this on to someone else or by becoming a pledge donor or whatever special campaign or ask you want to make? It's a valuable piece of real estate. What can this look like? What kind of event or structure can you set up? What I'd like to talk about here is having a special event just for asking for pledges. We did this at the school last year as part of our 65th reunion. And we got about 80 people in the room, and we raised, at a normal event in Monteverde, people are happy. In general, if they raise $1,000, I think they'd feel like they've done well, and they have. That's a good event. We raised $6,500 in cash that night towards new computers, and we raised $60,000 in pledges. 24,000 of that was brand new money, people who had never given before, and pledged $24,000 over the next 5 years. The other $36,000 of that were people who had already been giving, but now formalized their donations so that we knew what we could go back to them for year after year. One of our donors was a parent who said to me after, I love the school, but I never would have thought of making a pledge until I came to this event and I was asked in such a good way. Millard Fuller, the founder of Habitat for Humanity, they're now in over 75 countries around the world, multi-million-dollar organization. And his fundraising strategy is simply, I've always found you raise more money when you ask than when you don't. He says it in a good Southern accent. So at this event, we have a very tight program that's very scheduled. It's 1 hour. We don't want to use too much people's time. Again, we're evoking emotion and giving targeted information leading up to an ask. Ideally, it's a free event. In other places, I've had corporate sponsors foot the entire bill. And I go to that sponsor and say, if you'll put up the $10,000 or whatever it would cost to feed everybody, then everyone coming in feels no pressure to give to cover their costs, and they don't feel like my nonprofit is wasting money on a lavish meal. And I'll be able to say to them, every penny you give tonight will go to our organization, and people will feel more free to give more money. So it's good for that corporate sponsor or individual sponsor. They get good publicity out of it, but it also makes donors feel better about being at the event and donating. Who should do the ask at this event? It should be a person from your board. It could be your executive director. That's not ideal because usually the executive director is the person who speaks just before the ask. And that's your visionary leader. And they give a nice talk about how this organization is growing and how much more they're able to do. And then your board member or your long-term donor comes up and says, I am a donor. My partner and I have been donating for 5 years, and this is why, and we would now like to invite you to join us. You want to train this person. They have to feel good and joyful about delivering this message. They have to be credible. That's why being a donor and or a board member is good. And you got to trust them to follow the script that you're going to develop with them. And they're going to ask by there's a pledge card that you want to hand out, and you don't want to hand it out at the beginning of the night, because at the beginning of the night you haven't raised up their emotions yet. You haven't given them the information. If you give it out at the beginning, they'll write a check for the standard $20 to cover the cost of the meal, and they'll feel good. You wait until you've built them up and they're excited and they've cried and they believe in your vision. And then this person gets up and says, as you know, we are here as a fundraiser tonight, so I'm going to ask that the pledge cards now be handed out. And I'm going to walk you through this pledge card line by line. The pledge card itself has clear giving levels, and I'm going to show you one in just a second. And after they've filled them in, they should be able to put them in their own envelope and then put them into a bigger envelope so that nobody at the table knows how much they've given. They might have even written 0 on it, and that's okay, and that's part of the script also. This person near the M will say, if today is not your day to give, thank you for coming. You have made us stronger just by being here and showing your support. Everyone should leave feeling good. And after the giving part, make sure you're asking for their contact information. So here's part of the pledge card that we used at this reunion dinner that did so well for us in Monteverde. And the person giving the speech started right at the top. You'll see the first level is $4,000 per year for 5 years. If this is the level that you feel good about, please make a mark there. And then she paused for a minute. And then she went on to the next one, and she walked them through each of it. And near the bottom, you'll see it says, and if some other amount, more or less, is what you're called to today, please write it in this spot. And then to just get the logistics, are they going to give monthly or annually? We're going to contact them later with the details about how to set it up online or pre-authorized checks or however it is. But the whole emphasis was on what we call integrity donors, but these people who are giving over a 5-year time. After that, then we give the opportunity, or if you prefer to give just a one-time gift today, this is your space. And that's where we raised the $6,500. Again, having this event that we built up to, the people in the room, at least half of them have already been on our mailing list, have already been learning about us, are walking in ready to give, and then we bring them even further. The first time I did this with that African organization, we raised $150,000 over 5 years. And again, over half of that was new money. Half of it were former donors who now solidified their pledges. After you have this event, after you've done that first harvest, now we continue. And this is the part where a lot of us fail, especially after an event. We're exhausted. We just want to go to Harry Potter world or relax. And this is the time where you have to do the most work. You have to continue to cultivate that relationship right after they've given, and then in the years that follow. First, you want to do your follow-up call within 2 weeks, ideally within a week. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your donation. Do you have any questions? Do you need help setting up the online donation part or however you're going to do this? But thank you. And go back to those 4 questions. Thank you. What did you think of the event? Do you see yourself getting involved in any other ways now that you're all excited, now that you're a regular pledge donor? And do you know of other people who would like to get involved with us? And then ongoing, continue to communicate with these people. Let them know that their donation is making a difference. And just like in that second step of weed and water, part of it can be personal. Marie, I know you love our AIDS program. Just wanted to let you know we won another award. Thanks again. Your donation is making a difference. I'm not asking you for more money. I'm just following up and cultivating that relationship. And your mass media. So as you're designing your newsletters and your blog posts and your Facebook posts and your Instagram and however you do this and your events, think about how it's going to serve people who are new to your organization and also how it's going to serve people who have been with you for a while. Are you giving new ideas? Are you giving new information that they're continuing to learn more about you? For example, maybe each newsletter you're going to focus on one of your programs. So they knew all about your primary school program, but did they know you're also doing a gap year? Oh, that's new information for us. Make it continually fresh and new for them. Call them with things that they'll be interested in. Now they'll be more likely to volunteer. Whether they knew you or not, create opportunities. Give them special invitations to events. With my African organization, we had a photographer visit our schools, and we put together a beautifully organized photograph exhibition, and we toured Canada with it. And everywhere we went, if we had a donor there, we invited them to a special showing 1 hour before we opened it to the public. And board members were there. We served a bit of wine and cheese, and those donors got to come and get a sneak preview, meet with the executive director and the board, eat some cheese and drink some wine, and feel special before we opened it up to the public. We were doing it anyways, we just added it on. And of course, all your regular events. And ideally, you should have one event a year that is just for donors. If you need to combine it with your volunteer appreciation, okay. But again, not asking them for money. Have a picnic. Invite them to a sports day, but then invite them to come an hour early and feed them and then stay for the sports day. So you can tag it onto an event that you're already doing. But do something that you can stand there and say, we appreciate your support. And then this final stage, the people in stage 2 were just prospects, right? They were just seeds that we were hoping would bear fruit. At stage 4, they became a donor. Now we want to turn them into what at Monteverde Friends School we were calling an ambassador, someone who's more deeply supportive of your organization. And they're out there in the world saying good things about you, and they're actively helping bring other people to you. And adding a fancy little loop to our circle here, you want them to start increasing their donation levels as well. Maybe they're a one-time donor and they turn into a pledge donor, or they increase their pledge, or they give a big one-time gift for your capital campaign, or they become bequest planned givers. So your ambassadors, for the seed saving part, for the referrals, you want them to give you referrals from their business contacts, their friends, their family connections. Probably when you started this model, you went to your board of directors and maybe your staff. But the normal thing is to go to your board, they open their Rolodex, and they call all their friends and get the ball rolling. But they're going to run out of contacts. But now you've got a whole bunch of new people. You've got these new ambassadors. Let's get their friends in there. If they can invite 10 friends and 2 of them become donors, then on the next cycle, those 2 hopefully will invite 10 more each. And you keep growing. These people are the perfect ones to now host one of your introduction events. And I usually at this point share this model with them. I let them know what our strategy is and how we brought them in and how we developed a relationship with them that was based on trust and honesty. They got them to this point of believing in us. And I will say to them, this is exactly how we will treat your friends and your family. We will introduce what we do. We will give them the opportunity to become involved. We will not ever make them feel bad about not giving or not wanting to be involved. And so it makes them less fearful of inviting others. So they might host a party at their house, or be a host and give one of the tours or be along with it. Or they can bring guests to an event that you're doing. Hey, can you bring 5 friends to our next tour? And you can come along too, because you'll probably see it and you can add your comments. At that fundraising dinner, they could be a table captain. And the table captain has 2 jobs. One is being the host of the table and handing out the pledge forms and then collecting them after. And the other in this model is they can help fill that table. So you're going to bring some of the people you've been nurturing, and this table captain can also bring 3 or 4 people that they think would be interested. So that helps you get people to your event. It's a great role for someone who's freshly become a donor and is really excited and wanting to do more. As I said before, they can also increase how much they give, make a pledge, get involved in other campaigns, and do some planned giving. And usually this is the sequence, this is the order that you usually bring a donor in. They volunteer something first, they make an initial donation, then they make regular donations, and then it increases to a major gift and a bequest. They can become speakers or volunteers at your events. A lot of these people will end up joining your board or a committee. And that's it for the model. So as a reminder, we start out by identifying who our best possible prospects are. We have an event or a very meaningful first interaction with them. We continue to cultivate them and get them to understand and believe in us more. Finally, we ask them for a donation. We offer them the opportunity to support us financially, and ideally that's in the form of a multi-year pledge. We continue to nurture this so that we get multiple harvests. And we try to turn them into ambassadors where they're going out and bringing more people into this cycle. And, oh, before I tell you about your homework, well, this would be part of it. As I said before, the things I would suggest you go and do now, first is, maybe not first, but get some baseline data. Find out things like how much have you been generating each year and how many people do those come from? Do you have any pledge donations? How are you doing with donor retention? And how are you doing with your outreach? How many Facebook friends, email recipients, website visitors do you have? So that you can then plot your progress and feel really good a year or two from now. And then go back over this model that I've shared with you. And for each stage, write down the things you're already doing. What are we doing that introduces people to our organization? Oh, we have our annual barbecue. Great. For some people, that annual barbecue might be the first time they've ever heard about your organization. So it's serving as an introduction event, a stage 2 sowing the seeds event. And for other people, that same event is serving as a fertilizing event because they've already been with you for a while, they've already donated, and this is their renewal part where they come back to you again. So look at everything you're currently doing and figure out the place or the places that it fits in that circle. And then, once you see it there, say, what can we do to improve this event to accomplish those goals? At that barbecue, if someone's new to our organization, are they having a really impactful introduction to our organization? Am I explaining what we do and raising their emotion and then getting permission to continue the relationship? If they're already a donor, are they getting their backs scratched, right? Are they being thanked? Are they feeling like part of the family? Am I deepening the relationship with those people that I've already started with? Am I creating volunteer opportunities within that event so that I'm further cultivating those people? So for each thing you're already doing, how can I tweak it to be more effective in this model? And this shouldn't just be your fundraising events. This is everything you do. You know, if at our school, when we have parents' night, how does that fit into this model? We're not doing it as a fundraiser. We're doing it because we want parents' involvement. But those parents some of them are donors, some of them are prospective donors, some of them are going to refer new donors. How does this event fit into those goals? And are the things we could do at a parents' night, just as an example, or at our graduation ceremony, that would further those causes without watering down the original cause of that purpose of that event. And then look at the model and say what's missing. Maybe you don't actually have a powerful place that you ask for money. Maybe you're doing a great job at cultivating, but you never actually get around to asking in a powerful way. Let's create an event to make that happen. Maybe you're never asking for referrals, step 6. So create a way for that to happen. Maybe you realize you need to do more ongoing cultivation. It's time to launch or relaunch your newsletter or redo your website so it has better SEO and mobile responsiveness. Find the gaps. And You're going to have to dedicate resources to this. You don't have to have a full-time person. It's great if you can. But what can you afford? Can you afford some paid hours of one of your staff? Do you have a passionate volunteer, which is the way the Monteverde Friends School operated for many years with really good success? But you've got to have some hours going into this and someone with focus. You need a budget. It doesn't have to be big, but figure out how you're going to produce that video or those handouts or that event, redo your website, whatever it takes to make this work. And do you have a database that lets you track your relationship building, that lets you record what you know about people, what kind of interactions you've had, their very detailed giving history, so that when you phone them up at some point and say, I just wanted to thank you again for your donation, you know exactly how much that was and how many years they've given before that, and you know that they're a former client or a former parent or what got them involved. Instead of just saying, I'd like to thank you for your donation, if you can say, John, I'd like to thank you for your donation. I know you were a teacher here 10 years ago, and it's great that you're still involved. And I see that your son graduated from Brown. How's he doing now? That's a relationship, and that is going to pay off for you. And make a plan. Make a plan for how you're going to complete the design of this model and then carry it out. Create the pieces that are missing and start to do it. And how you're going to follow through and evaluate how you're doing, what can be improved, and what the results are. And I don't think I made a bullet point, but you can't do this alone, and you shouldn't. This takes your entire team to be involved. You need a champion, and probably since you're watching this still, it's you, but you need everyone on your team to understand this model and their place in it. When I'm giving a tour of the school, those teachers had to understand why I was letting people peek into their class, even knowing it was a bit of a disruption. They had to understand, and they had to be celebrated for the fact that the real reason our fundraising was so successful, the true reason, wasn't because we gave a great message. It was because people saw the magic that was happening in our school because of the teachers and the students. And I wanted our teachers to know that I wasn't off raising money for them. They were absolutely part of our fundraising model. And that's all I have to say about that. But keep in touch. Do your homework. Believe in this. Grow your organization. Once you've met with your team and developed your model and written down your questions, let me know how you're doing and let me know how I can help. I can review your model for you. I can give feedback. I can just encourage you. I've been in your shoes. I'm still in your shoes. We're in this together. If I was still in Monteverde and we were together in a workshop, I would be offering a second workshop specifically to go over your model. I am willing to do it by email, by Skype, by telephone. But I am here to support you. Let's succeed together. Thank you. Gracias.